Welcome back to the number one NRL Fantasy Show, Casual Athlete with Biz and Longy. Congratulations, everyone, watching this on winning your head-to-head finals. I'm going to turn that music down because I like the sound of our voices a bit better.
That's like super powerful, Longy. That music has got me supercharged. I don't know why we decided to put that on, but I'm ready to let's go.
Let's jump into it. Look, buy, hold, sell. Round 24. We're getting to the pointy end of the season, so it's either consolidating your ranking right now or focusing on those all-important head-to-head finals. This is the time where you probably don't have many trades left. You're probably thinking about those final moves. We're looking at your roster and thinking, man, I wish I had 5 more trades. Well, you should have been more disciplined earlier in the year. Regardless, let's look at those cheapies first here. Look, everyone knows who the buyers are. You want Nathan Cleary, you want Nico Hines, you want Isaiah Yeo, you want Dave Fafita, Harry Grant, all these guys. But who are the cheapies? Who are the guys you can get for a low price, whether you got a low budget or you're looking for a cash out? First one here, he's a guy we talked about before, Biz, Ben Trebojevic. As a cash out, do you have any interest in this one?
No, not really. I mean, I'm a bit bitter. Like last time we had him in that cheapie section, he did his hamstring or like 5 points in like round 9 or 10. So that wasn't great. He's got Penrith this week. They could get flogged out of their minds, and then he's back to the bench or something like that. So not really interested. Even if he does, even if you bring him in, I don't think he's scoring that highly. There's some other names in this list I like a lot more.
Yeah, I feel you. Look, Tuolangi's right there on the bench. He won't play the biggest minutes. Olakau'atu is the primary edge back rower. So I agree with that. Don't hate him as a cash out, but only if you really needed the extra 40K. Next guy here, Sua Wong. Now, Sua Wong, he made nearly 60 tackles last week. He's got a nice matchup this week, so he plays against the Dolphins. They've leaked some points to edges in the last few weeks. I'm going to make a call here, and I reckon he's not only the best guy on this list, there's a good chance that he's going to score 60 plus this week. In fact, I'll put that on record. I'm going to call it Sua Wong 60 plus. If you get him, start him.
Yeah, I mean, if you have him, definitely we'll start him. I mean, I mentioned the last week that his average in reserves is like 57.5. So it's pretty much averaging 60 already in the reserves. So yeah, he scored 49, 50 odd last week with a ton of tackles. Young guy with a lot of attacking upside. I'm sure that 60 plus is not out of the cards. My only issue with getting, I'm tempted to get Wong in this week while it's still pretty cheap, just as a depth piece with my last 2 remaining trades. But the thing is, I don't think Egan Butcher was named this week. He's still coming back, so I don't really want to bring in a depth guy only for him to get benched. And this could go 2 ways for the Roosters. They either have a lot of faith in Wong and they're not going to bother burning him out with big minutes or risking an injury with nothing to play for at the end of the year, or they've given up on the year and they just rather blood him and give him experience now, so he's raring to go next year. So either or. Depends on which camp you sit in. If you think Wong's going to just keep that spot for the rest of the year, like at 276K, a guy who's going to average 55 or higher in first grade because he got the minutes as well, like you might as well get him in.
Yep, high upside. There is a bit of risk there with the minutes, but he's that guy. And then Taina Tuapiki. Look, for the Warriors, this one's pretty straightforward. He's coming in for Chance Nickel-Klokstad, who got concussed last week. It's probably only a 1-week injury with the concussion. There's a chance that maybe it's 2 weeks. It was pretty rough, that concussion, but I think it's probably only going to be 1 week here. The only reason he's on this list is because he has the Tigers this week. Now, he's averaged around, if we extrapolated his points per minute, he's around a 40-point per game scorer in first grade so far. It's a very small sample size, but there is a chance that he pops off and has a big game in this one, and that's why he's on this list. I'll throw Shaq Mitchell to you next, Biz. Look, we've got a situation where Burgess is out suspended for a long time. We've got Jai Arrow experiencing some challenges with his back spasms, that kind of thing. Yeah, look, they've got some injuries, South. So do you think Shaq Mitchell's a guy you'd consider at 321, or is it just a little bit too expensive?
Yeah, Shaq Mitchell's a really interesting one. We talked about him really early this year. He came firing out of the blocks He was like the one that flew under everyone's radar. He was getting decent minutes for the Rabbits, playing very well and a high PPM. I don't think Shaq Mitchell needs that many minutes per se to be effective at 320k. Like even if he gets 40, 45 minutes starting prop, I think that's more than enough for him to be good value on his price. And the Souths just have a lot of injuries to their pack. It's not going too well for them. Like their form at the back of the season is dwindling. So changes could impact Shaq Mitchell in a good way because he hasn't been in the team in a solid minutes role all year. But as they're looking to change things up, they might give him more time because he's actually played really well, in my opinion, through the year. So at 320k, I like it. I think he has pretty good job security because even if he goes back to the bench, if he's getting 30, 40 minutes, he's still scoring handily. I would still take Wong over Shaq Mitchell just for the upside at the price, but I think Shaq Mitchell is a pretty decent option as well.
Yeah, I agree with your last point there. There's a pathway to scores for him, but I'd never feel comfortable starting him in basically any capacity, and I don't feel like he has the upside to loophole either. So for him, he's kind of like one of those guys where you'd be happy to have someone like him playing decent minutes through Origin. But for me, he doesn't have that volatility that I want out of a guy in that spot. So if there was a 321k winger or center, for example, that had an easy run of fixtures, I'd rather have someone like that I could loophole in. Like we were talking about Averillo a little while back. Someone like him, or there's a bunch of these sorts of guys that I'd probably take over him. Andrew Davey, he's not one of those guys. He's here, 350k. He's got the starting spot at Parramatta. Extrapolate his points over 80 minutes, and he's a 40-point per game player. Any interest there? Do you think he keeps a big minute spot on the edge for Parramatta, even when Regan Campbell-Gillard's back? Like, what are your thoughts here?
No, I think I'd avoid Davey. The trend I've noticed with Davey is that when it's closer to full strength team, what happens is Davey plays about 50 minutes, and then Madison shifts to the edge for the end of the game. So how it's kind of been working, and I've noticed this is a Madison owner, but when Davey's starting and Madison's on the bench, Madison will come on, play 40 minutes in the middle. So from like the 20 to 60 minute mark, he'll play in the middle, and then 60 to 80, he'll finish on Davey's edge. I thought Madison was actually really good last week at second row. So I'm surprised they benched him here. I wouldn't be surprised if I see a late change and they swap back. And I'm not sure, like Davey must be training really well, or he must communicate very, very well. But I mean, performance wise, I'm not seeing why there's this obsession with him being in the starting side. He hasn't been great with the ball in hand or defensively. So there must be something he does like that fans can't see through the television screens. Obviously I'm in New York, so I haven't been to some of the games recently. So I haven't seen if he's communicating really well or, calling the defensive line really well, even if he's not defending himself personally very well. But, he's got the spot, but I think whilst Madison's on the bench and they're close to full strength, he's not going to get big minutes.
Yeah, agree with you. If I was picking the team, I would have Sean Lane, Ryan Madison starting edge back rowers, and then Cardi is that first drop. The other option is go Sean Lane, Cardi, Madison off the bench. But my point is more like Davey in the conversation.
Definitely, yeah. Irrelevant if we have Sean Lane and stuff, but like the truth to it is like it doesn't matter what permutation or combination you have. Davey is usually on the bench or like not in our squad. But yeah, whatever.
Hey, look, Brad Arthur, when you pick para players, you've got to be aware that this can happen. Yeah. Next group here, we got the pods. So these are the guys that are a bit different. This is a very confused list. And look, we don't really know what you guys need right now. Like, I think if you've been watching this show for 23 rounds this year, you kind of know what we think about all the gun players right now. We've told you about most of our pods as well. So these are some different ones. We'll power through these guys. Let's go back and forth here. Look, Ethan Strange is the first one. He's got a starting spot at Canberra right now. He's not in fantasy yet as of recording. He'll probably be base price. So he's a guy who hasn't played in first grade before, and he's going to be a cash out option for you at maybe that center spot. You probably don't need a center right now. Not many of the big ones are on a bye because Val Holmes got knocked out last week anyway. Maybe covered for Drinkwater, something like that. Not a great scorer, though, in reserve grade.
Yeah, I think he averaged about 27 reserve grade. I think he's got a lot of
Mm.
talent though. Like I've heard a lot about him. Good performances in various rep games, but yeah, I think the best use of Ethan Strange is a base price cash out, just taking the money off the table. Similar, I bought Kotrich in last week for a similar reason. There was this base price funding query. If he plays great. But like, I'm hoping he'll never be in my 17. But at a pinch, if he needs to be there, hopefully he can get 25 points.
I mean, look, you can loophole him, and if he scores 4 tries, he might crack 50. So
Yeah.
that's a pretty exciting one. Joey Lussick next, 397k. If he was a bit cheaper, it'd be really exciting. Do you think he keeps a big minute role in this Parramatta pack?
Yeah, I generally think like if this was middle of the season or early season and cash cows were important or like depth was important, like I would be definitely buying Joe Lussick. I think um, Brad Arthur really likes him. I think he's a pretty good he's not a mainstream hooker and like that people always talk about, but he's actually not too bad with the ball in hand. He runs it a lot more than hands. Um, I'm a bit suspect on his first contact in tackles, and he was getting tired, not having played that rigorous level of rugby league at NRL level recently.
Mm.
But so they've brought hands onto the bench, but I still think Lussick gets most of the minutes. But at 397k at this point of season, like, what's really the point of bringing him in? He's on a top tier gun with hands there. He's probably a 40-point scorer. Yeah, the next two, three guys on this list could be that gun level. So I would be skipping Lussick now. But one to watch out for next year. If Eels don't sign a hooker for next year, I'd be pretty interested in Lussick.
I mean, he's probably the de facto option. Gets a full preseason to get it ready. Brad Arthur likes to force the 80 minutes as well when he can. So,
another strange one. I don't think either of Lussick or Hands are good enough to warrant an 80-minute role. Whereas I think they're both 40 minutes each is actually pretty good for them.
Yeah, or 50-30. Take a bit of sting out of the bring a guy on 10 minutes before halftime. I think it's a great time to bring him on. Max King's the next one here. And look, I'll put these guys together. So Max King, Blake Laurie, they're two middle options. Two guys who took a bit of a dip through the middle of the season and have now had a bit of a resurgence. Look, I'll speak on both and throw it to you. But Max King, his scores haven't been crazy in the last month of footy, but he's clearly gotten over that injury that he had in the middle of the season. He's a guy who he was averaging sort of in the 50s at the start of the year, and everything's there for him to average low 50s again at this point. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if he does do that. Risk there, and risk for Blake Laurie as well, is that he's in a pretty rubbish side that are sort of tanking down the stretch. So if he does pick up an injury again, or if they're just thinking, let's rest our guys, let's give young guys a shot, he's going to get a rest. On the Blake Laurie side of things, look at that Dragons pack this week. I'll throw it to you. Have you seen a pack that looked worse on paper than that current Dragons pack?
I was ready to talk smack, but then I remember the Dragons almost beat the Eels last week, so I'm gonna reserve my comments about how bad.
That's why we're going in. That's why we're going in.
Yeah. Look, on Max King, I agree. Not much more to add. The only caveat I'd say is Luke Thompson's back, so it could impact Max King's middle rotation. But I think Max King's their guy. The one he's not a superstar by any means, but he's the guy that they just plug in there. He's reliable. It doesn't make too many mistakes. Does his job. Kind of like Tolman was, for many years. Just do his job. Blake Laurie, I like this option because as long as he said the pack for the Dragons does on paper look. I don't want to talk smack about it, but it doesn't look great. I think they really relied on him last week. They were giving him a lot of ball. He played like 45 minutes straight. Laurie's actually not a bad player. Like, I actually think when Laurie's running downhill and like there's some momentum, he can be a real bruising runner of the ball. He's big. He's not bad footwork wise. I think given his like body type, people don't suspect his footwork. Like he's actually quite crafty with his feet. Has the ability to score a barge over trying at 595k. I'm actually expecting him to like average closer to 55 plus to end the year because the Dragons will rely on him with Jack de Belin out, Jack Bird just going in and out of the side, a bunch of other players out like the Molo got knocked out in the first minute last week. So Yeah, look for Laurie if you can't afford the top tier guns to be someone who can elevate towards the back end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, on real footy, I think he's fantastic. I think he's taken a leap over the last couple of seasons. He's obviously developed his fitness somehow, but also developed his size and strength. And look, he's a prop, right? So as the props get into their later 20s, a lot of those guys mature, and I think he's fantastic. Like if he was on a side where if you plugged him into the role Joe Alpha Hengawi, for example, is playing for Parramatta, people would be talking about Laurie as an Origin candidate right now. So
Laurie, he is good.
yeah,
He,
he's
he,
great.
he was real bruising. Like he dominated some of those runs against the Para forward back last week. So
Yeah, and he's the only one, like you said. So him, I mean, Dan Russell as well. We're not going to talk about him, but Dan Russell, who we said by a couple of weeks ago, he posted, was it 60 points, 58 points?
no, I think I swear he got up to like 72 or something up to updates. I'll have to check that. But I'm gonna actually while you go talk about Tino, I'm gonna look that up because
Look, last one here is Tino, right? And Tino's a pod. Tino's a big pod. There's not a coach on the planet who's contending for anything who held Tino for the last 3 weeks. And if you did, let us know because I'll take that back. But look, 3 weeks out, 828K, no one was holding on to him. So if you've got the trades right now and you have the players you want, Tino is one of those guys where he can score 70 plus in that front row position. Look, Payne Haas is doing that. Isaiah Yeo is doing that. Maybe your third middle forward isn't. So that's really what I'm going to go with there. The other thing is Fodder Waker. Biz, you mentioned this offline, but Fodder Waker's out for a bit too. So it's going to be big minutes, a lot of responsibility on Tino here.
Yeah, I really like that as a pod. Not much more to add. I think he was going great guns before his suspension. I think he'll have a big end to finish. And yeah, I'm just retracting. I went back and looked at Russell's scores, 57 points. Still a very good score for his price. I don't know where I got the 72 from, so I apologize.
I think he scored 70 in Supercoach. Or
68. But actually, just looking at this game, the one we should add here, Longy, and you will obviously have a good view on this, but Bryce Cartwright has been flying fantasy-wise. And here's the thing, like, Moses loves Cartwright. The amount of time Moses goes down that edge to give Cartwright the ball on the inside, running a line, and with offloads to hand being 4 points, like he is being I mean, let me whip out his last 5 scores, but I think he scored 73 times in his last 5. He got 88 last week. He's a pod that's not on this list. And I think the reason, and Longy, I assume you haven't put him on this list because he has that bye at the last week. So you're actually not only getting him from 2-3 weeks. But if he did not have that bye, I mean, I'm looking at the form, and Bryce Cartwright has, in his last 3, averaged 71, which is only behind Johnson, Cleary, Isaac Tungo, who's still out for some reason with his leg, and Katoni Staggs, who is also flying under the radar with the last 3 average of 70. So Cartwright has actually averaged more than Isaiah Yeo, Hopgood, Carrigan, Murray, McInnes, Haas over the last 3 weeks. And if I extend that to last 5 average, it's Cleary, Ponga, Johnson, Tino, and then Cartwright. So even if you extend to last 5 games, Carty's in the top 5 for both. So hot option there. Wow. I mean, I wouldn't bring him in just because he misses the last week. You're laughing long. You don't like Cartwright?
No, I do. I was wondering how long it would take for you to go, positive on a Parramatta player after bringing up the game on the weekend, and it was about 30 seconds.
You know what those mood swings are like. In the first 20 minutes of the game, the Eels group chat was like, "Yeah, book the grand final tickets. Oh, let me look at flights back to Sydney." And then, like at halftime, we're just like, "Why do we support this team? Why can't we go for like a good team for once?" We
they let us down. Yeah. But look, no, Carty's a great one. Carty's a great one. Look, Tony Staggs, I look at him as well. I think we've just thrown so many center options at the people, like the guys who watch us here. I just don't think he's better than a lot of those guys.
Yeah, I think so. And like Staggs, with his injury history and Broncos flying.
They also have a bye next week.
They have a bye next week, and there's a chance he gets rested the last week as well, leading into finals if they've got like their minor premiership or locked up, or if they're not going to make the minor premiership, but top 2 is locked up, they still might give him a rest. But
throw on Cardi as well, just quickly, is you were talking about Davey before getting that rest when Madison goes to the edge. They have done that with Cardi in the past. And look, Cardi's in great form. But if you have a game where potentially Para's leading and Cardi's throwing through a few really bad offloads, something like that, it could easily be Cardi getting that rest.
I think he's going to
yeah.
play 80 minutes throughout. Like I would say he's the leader of the edge rotation now. Like, I genuinely think he's taken over as our number one edge player. Like, he's what Lane was last year, just a guy who's just been so for a while, and then out of nowhere, he's like form edge back row. And what I'm loving about Cartwright, like fantasy wise, is he doesn't miss as many tackles anymore. Like, he used to be that player, kind of like Kurt Capewell style, where even though he was in the middle rotation or edge rotation, he would miss 6-7 tackles. But he's hungry in defense. He's putting pressure on kickers. He's doing the small things well. And the reason I bring that up is, while they're not fantasy relevant, it keeps him on the park for 80 minutes. And it keeps him in that starting role. So I think it's a great option, because Moses has built a lot of chemistry with Cartwright over the last 2 months. And I would say that Cartwright is his go-to player. Like, if you watch a Para game, after the first 30 minutes last week, Madison had like 3 runs and Cartwright had like 10. This is Moses keeps going to Cartwright. So it helps playing next to your primary playmaker as well. But yeah, I mean, that's enough on Cartwright. I think it's a good pod option if you've got depth to cover him with last week.
A little risky, but yeah, juicy pod. We'll stick with that sort of trepidatious, start or sit. Cardi would be in that conversation a lot of the time. Do you start him in your 17? Do you sit him out? Do you trade him out? This is kind of replacing hold or sell as well, because you're probably not going to sell these guys at this point of the season, but do you want to bench them or do you want to loophole them? Whatever it is there. Look, first one here, and I'll go the first two actually as a combo. Ruben Garrick, Daly Cherry Evans, they're up against Penrith this week. Look, I'm looking at my side, and Ruben Garrick is in that 19th man slot for me right now. I've got, what's his name? The Bulldogs guy.
Kiraz.
Rajab.
Oh, Rajab.
I've got Rajab. Yeah, and I've got Kiraz too. But
he's still got
Rajab sitting beneath him.
Love it.
I'll bring Rajab in if Garrick goes well, but I just reckon, same as Joey Manu a couple of weeks ago, it's a tough matchup. I think Penrith are going to destroy Manly, as in low-scoring game. They're going to suffocate them in this one.
Yeah, I mean, didn't Penrith destroy them by like 50 points to start the year or something as well? I think Penrith have just got better since then. So
yeah, it's not a good time to face Penrith. So look, Ruben Garrick, if you can bench him for someone, I mean, look, I'm doing it for Kiraz, which is an easy choice. They've got the Knights. Knights are conceding some points, so I'm okay with that. You're looking at this, and you've got Garrick, and you have Valence Tavare, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm tempted to. Yeah, I mean, I'll probably I've got the loop option with another Bulldogs back in Skelton. Loving these one and done Bulldogs backs, but I mean, we talked about this. Like, having that loophole option is really important this back end of the year. With Garrick, yes, I think I would loop him. DC, no, because DC is just like a heavyweight. Like, the thing that gives me pause is I know how good DC is, but Penrith suffocated Hines for like 30 points like 2 weeks ago. So, and Hines is better than DC. So this could be a very low scoring game for him as well. But DC, like his pedigree, I would just give him the benefit of the doubt. Even Munster last week, the 30 score. Like, Penrith are just crushing these gun halves. So, yeah, I'm not sure about. I mean, I'd rather loop Garrick, I think, than DC. I think I just have to take the punt on DC.
Yeah. I think you have to. I mean, if you can loop both. If you got a really strong, deep roster. The thing I'll throw at DC is he's got a really good long kicking game, so he's going to get those points.
Yeah,
and he can tackle. Yeah, I back him to find an attacking stat. He's usually pretty good for that. I think we see a game where, and I was saying this last week, people were asking about DC as a potential captain at times as well. So I think it's very hard to predict DC's scores, is what I'm getting at. And I often find that the games where he's meant to go really well, he sort of sits back. And the games where he's meant to struggle, he steps up and he throws a lot at the wall, and so it doesn't all come off. But you talked about Cardi before. DCE is a guy who sort of creates those stats as well, even if they're a little bit empty at times.
I'm hoping that Penrith dominate, get ahead early, and Garrick and DC are just sitting there like throwing offloads every 2 seconds, just trying to get something going, and it just racks up the points. I mean, it could happen, right? We've seen it before.
Happen.
Like when Cowboys were like crushing the Eels a couple of weeks back, the whole Eels forward pack just decided to offload every tackle, and they all ended up with massive scores. It was great for fantasy.
It's so fake. But
yeah. The 4-point offload is a fake stat most of the time, but what can you do? You just got to play it.
It's pretty goofy. And then look, Dylan Edwards in the same game. Dylan Edwards is hopelessly out of form for fantasy. Just absolutely hopelessly out of form. I don't have him. If I had him, I'd know. I mean, look, if you look at this, like he's got a better matchup than Garrick, but he's so much worse than Garrick for fantasy. He's probably behind Garrick in my eyes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Dylan, the thing is, we say it's a good matchup, but Penrith have been dominating teams the last few weeks, and he's still not scoring well. So I don't know what's going on with Edwards' fantasy app, but like this looked like the year that he had got it all together fantasy-wise. He went from like a mid-tier guy to like a top-tier gun, and he's regressing back to his career mean rapidly right now.
Mm-hmm.
I would loophole him in this week. I mean, I'd be more confident starting Edwards and Garrick this week. Just so that Penrith is, I hate Penrith, but their defense is out of this world good. They just, honestly, but like Edwards, I'll just give him the benefit of the doubt that he'll bounce back. But if you can loop him, I would do it.
Yeah, we hate Penrith because we're jealous of them. By the way, for anyone watching, like Para fans, so it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough to watch them keep winning. Look, let's go to a Para player here, Ryan Madison. He goes from starting edge back row role to the bench. It's not ideal, is it?
I mean, last week he scored 69 points, and the good thing about that was he's played 30, 40 on the edge, and then the rest of the game in middle. I think this role will be 40 minutes in the middle and then 20 minutes on the edge to end the game. I'm still hoping he's a late inclusion in the starting side. I think he's a much better option than Davey, like we spoke about. But Madison's in pretty good form fantasy-wise. Like he's coming off back-to-back 60-plus scores. So, I think you'd still play him here. I think with the Broncos, either it's going to be... So when Parramatta play these big games, their forwards will score well. And the reason for that is they'll try and grind it out through the middle. Madison will get a lot of tackles, a lot of yards. Meters gained. I'm already getting into fantasy football season. Meters gained.
How good.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, sorry, not yards. Meters gained. But the other thing is, if Broncos in Brisbane is a difficult matchup, if the Eels fall behind, they have shown multiple times they will just going to offload the ball. Like 25, 30 offloads. They did it against the Cowboys. They did it against the Storm. So I think Madison, either they grind them out and he plays really well, or they fall behind and he just starts offloading. So I think he's a start option for sure.
Love it. I totally agree. And there's no point loopholing him because he's not going to score below 40. So, you're going to get a range of scores from 40 to 70. He's just really safe. John Bateman's up here as well. Johnny Bateman, bit out of form recently. Tough matchup against the Warriors. If you've got, say, Preston and Dave Fafita and a strong, deep bench, is Bateman a guy you look at benching, selling even?
I would have thought about it, but now with Blore back in the team on the bench, I think what happens is Bateman spends time in the middle. Like, we were the first, coverage or media outlet that even broke the fact that Bateman was doing that role. Like, I still claim that. Like, no one was talking about it. Like, I swear we were the first people to be like, Bateman's going to be in the middle, based on this bench. And
we've been first on a few things.
I know, that's good.
We're pretty nerdy, man.
We've got to toot our own horn here, but I think he does it again. So I think it helps that Bateman spends some time in the middle this week and rack his tackles up. I think Bateman's pretty safe. I think Madison, his floor is 35, 40. So with higher upside. Papa Lee is someone I'm a bit more worried about because he relies more on the attacking stats, and at the Tigers he doesn't get any. But You know, I'll just have to play them this week. Bateman, I would start.
Those Tigers fixtures are really good down the stretch as well. Like this is not a good one this week, but after this week, it's nice. So
Warriors have the second best defense in the league, which I only found out last week, which really surprised me. But I love the Warriors as a second team, so keep it going. Love to see that. But yeah, I don't remember the last time I had thought to myself that, they're versing the Warriors, I should bench them because they're really good defensively. Like it's been a long time since I thought. Usually it's like, Warriors, put a captain on them.
On paper, though, it doesn't make sense. Like
they're doing great, but you know what? Like their edges, like
that's
Ford,
fair,
Corey, Barnett, like a whole rotation of edges. They're actually solid guys.
Tough. Yeah, I guess with Bateman too, if they get behind, he's that guy chucking the ball around. So
exactly.
Yeah, he could be nice. Definitely keep him. Look, captaincy is the last thing here, and we'll hit these guys up. There's some interesting points to raise on these ones. So, look, Nathan Cleary, we talked about him ad nauseum. He plays that first game of the round, which is really nice as well. He is a good shout. He's been in good form. But I want to talk on Nico Hines first thing here. So, Nico Hines, pros and cons. We talked about this for about 20 minutes before hopping on recording. But for Nico, it's a Gold Coast matchup, which is really good for him. They've been leaking a lot of points. But Nico Hines scores a lot better with Matt Moylan than he does with Braden Trindle. So, Nico Hines' stats. Let's hit these up. In 2022, so last year, when he played with Trindle, he averaged 66 points a game. Without Trindle, 75 points a game. This year, stats remained. With Trindle, 67 points a game, and without Trindle, 80 points per game. So across 2 years, it's about a 10-point difference. Look, Biz, I want to throw it to you. Why do you think that Trindle is having such a negative effect on Hines' fantasy scoring?
Yeah, well, the first thing I said, I think last year, assuming you've done the analysis on footystatistics.com, I think it's skewed because Trindle came off the bench a lot last year. Whereas this year, I think they've just left Trindle out of the side. So I think this year's analysis is a lot more accurate. And I think that 10-point difference in 2023 is very explainable. I don't think it's a fluke. And if you look at last week, Trindle halved the kicking with Hines for about 300 kick meters, which is 10 points. So that kick meter difference is taken off Hines' score and straight onto Trindle's because Moylan doesn't kick at all. Like he kicks once or twice a game, right? If lucky, he'll get to 50 to 100 kick meters, but it doesn't happen that often. Trindle is actually, and Longy, you said this, he's more of a 7. Like he plays in the same role that Hines should be. He when he was the dominant playmaker next to Moylan to start the year, like he was really good, and he deserves a first grade opportunity somewhere else, I think. But Trindle demands the ball a lot more than Moylan does, so Hines' opportunity shrinks significantly. So I would actually go, if I had to pick over Hines and Johnson this week, it would be difficult because, like I was saying to Longy, Hines, if he scores 2 tries, he's a threat to go like 120 plus. Sean Johnson scored 2 tries last week. It was like mid-90s. So that's the difference. I think Hines scores in a lot more categories, offloads the ball, runs the ball a lot more. They tackle about equally. So I think Cleary is the obvious captain option, but if you're chasing points, you can't captain Cleary because everyone's going to take captain Cleary. So I think that the other options on this list are really juicy. But that's the analysis on Hines. Like, unfortunately, with Trindle there, he's just not the best fantasy player anymore. He's like a number 2 behind Cleary. I think that if Trindle was his halves partner to start next year, I'm not selecting Hines. Like if I had trades, I would cash out Hines, to be honest, because at his price. I mean, he's not $1 million anymore, but if he was $1 million next to Trindle, I think there's better value options out there. But definitely keep him now. Don't listen to that and try and trade him out. He's definitely a hold for this season, but he's not that guy who I think just scores 80 for fun with Trindle there.
You got me thinking about trading him now.
I don't want the liability. I don't want the comment section to be like, Biz said trade out Hines, and I traded out Hines. He scored 100, but he's still a tier 1. fantasy
Good.
asset. He's still amazing. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
saying that he's not the $1 million. Like, when Hines to start the year, like, my benchmark expectation was 80 points in 80 minutes. Now it's probably like 70, which is still amazing, right? Like, that's just how good
66,
he is.
67 points. That's his average of Trindle. 2 years, very consistent. 75 to 80 without Trindle. So you're spot on there. Sean Johnson against the Warriors, though, against the Tigers. That's clean. That's really nice. Look, they're in good form.
He's crazy.
He's going
right
to keep
now.
doing everything he's doing. There's still a lot of what's the word? There's a little bit of historical trauma, I think, with having owned Sean Johnson. I've always had him in draft leagues and that kind of thing. And the last couple of years he sort of slid off and he's really inconsistent. But he's just so consistent this year.
I was saying this before, like offline, but in his last 8 games, he's scored below 67 once.
Wow.
Like, he scores a Cleary-esque right now. So it's a pod.
I might do it.
I love it.
It's head-to-head finals, though. It's so risky.
I think I could be wrong, and correct me in the comments if so, but I think the highest score of this week had Johnson as the captain over Cleary.
That's a real man.
Right there. That's a real man. And like that, or woman, but and deserves that top spot for the week. But that team was stacked. Like, the worst player in that team was Tohu Harris on the bench. Like, everyone else was like, Grant, Yo, Cleary, Hines, Sean Johnson, Dylan. I'm not Dylan Edwards here. Tedesco, Latrell, Ponga, Garrick, and Manu. Like, it was the most stacked team. I thought I had a good team, but I don't know. That coach definitely played it well. And Madison on the bench, and it was a crazy score. It was 1,290 or some shit like that.
We should try to get someone from like the top 10 or someone who's won a weekly prize onto the show, just to show us their team and what they've done. If you're still watching right now and you're in that top 10, top 100, even, let's extend it out. Just drop us a comment, let us know, shoot me an Instagram.
I will say though, when you do that, like when I featured my team when it was in the top 50 or so at the start of the year, it just went downhill from there. I think, if you show off your team, the gods just go against you. So at this point of the year, you got to do for it. But
so maybe outside the 50, then if you're like fifth,
if you're in with a threat, if you're in with a threat, it would be good if we could even get like this year's overall champion on for a guest appearance. We should try and track that. But
I reckon we can get him.
I think we can get it. I mean, we have the connects to. I mean, Longy's at the NRL headquarters every second week, so surely we can get him in.
Yeah, no, mate, we'll be able to get him easy. If they want to be on the show, then that's even better.
I would be interested
to be the only non-winner.
Who's like? I wonder if the current number 1 has watched any of this. Because there's 2 approaches, right? Like, if you're good, sometimes you watch these shows and you think, I know better than these guys, right? I sometimes when I'm watching other fantasy shows, I listen to fantasy podcasts as well, hear about other opinions. Like, I watch Jamie's stuff and I really like his stuff. But sometimes I'm like, don't agree with it. He's wrong. Not Jamie, but just in general. But like, I'm sure there's people that do that, watch this, and they're just thinking, the casual athlete. They're so.
I mean, we say some crazy stuff.
We do say some crazy stuff.
We said Simonson, and look at that.
Yeah. We said Simonson. We said Jaden Suar. About all these. Like, I'm just trying to think about like all these. I would love to go at the end.
We said Aaron Clark. I said Junior Tupou a few weeks back when he scored that like 80-point game. Like, Joseph Suoli, I threw in there 3 weeks ago. He's
Jerome
got
Hughes.
2 of the 3.
I mean, Jerome Hughes got 100 and then died for some reason. He's like gone now.
Man, I've recommended him twice this year as a mid-ranger, and both times he's done that. Like, he's gone huge and then gotten injured. So
we need to go through our whole season, and in last week we should talk about our hits and misses. That'll be a fun video. At least for us. I don't know if our viewers will like it too much. I think we're remembering the wins. There's probably a few losers. I mean, we talked about Ben Trebojevic. There's definitely a few losers in there somewhere.
Oh, there's There's some L's. There's for
Yeah,
sure some L's.
but a
But
lot
I'll
of
just
big
blame you
wins.
for those.
Like, yeah, we Scott Drinkwater at like 550K. There was a bunch of like good
Well,
calls that we had.
that week we said Drinkwater. I think he's 550 odd. We said Garrick at 495 that same week. We said if you were crazy, you could go Johnston, and he raised 100K as well. And he's sort of dwindled back since then. But yeah, then the Knights team, we've had some W's. On this captain list, though, I'll just quickly touch a few of the other guys. Look, Payne Haas, he's cranking it right now. The risk here is that the Broncos destroy Parramatta with Adam Reynolds back, and he gets a rest. I'm hoping that's not a risk. I hope the Para forward pack matches up. I personally am not going to take the risk. I captained Haas last week, thinking that he'll play big minutes. The Cowboys are pretty tough. It worked out, but this week I wouldn't be doing it. And then Kalen Ponga up against the Dogs. What did you say he was averaging at fullback this year?
Like 68 or 69.
Yeah.
We spoke about this again. This is another bit of an analysis we did in like the first 4 or 5 weeks, and we said that if Ponga moves back to fullback, he's a definite buy. He's just a much better player there.
Yeah.
He has gone back to fullback and just blitzed it. Like people, I think, bought him in at a cheap price, so they weren't paying much attention to him at the back. But he is just plugging in like 70 plus most weeks, and everyone has him, so I'm not really noticing his scores.
Yeah.
But he's been unbelievable. He's got a lovely matchup this week against the Dogs. Has shown before he can go real huge, like 100 plus scores. So again, if you're chasing points and you don't want to go Cleary and you want to take a punt, like I can get behind Ponga. It is tempting this week.
It's insane, though. It's insane.
High risk. HIA potential in like the first minute. Knights stud potential. Knights won 5 in a row. Looking great. Who knows?
I know. I'm just looking at Sean Johnson here. I think he's the one. But yeah, look, let us know in the comments who you're going to captain, and let us know if you made it all the way through this one. We sort of dawdled around. It's towards the end of the season. We're just having a bit of fun reflecting.
Yeah, we do it at the end. If you were watching this till this point, you're probably just here to hear the rubbish chat between us at this point. So, yeah. Thanks
the true homies of the channel, man, are here right now. You're in the private club.
This is like the last 5 minutes of this video is just like me and Longy catching up time at this point. We don't see each other anymore, so we're just talking trash. We
should just start filming from the start. Include the pre 20 minutes as well.
Yeah,
how you doing? How's work?
Yeah, life's good. How's your family? Yeah.
Easy.
Nah, it's great.
Easy. Yeah, look, that's buy, hold, sell for this week. So yeah, let us know what you're gonna do. We'll see you next week. If there's anything you want us to make videos on, we're pretty low effort right now, but we'll try our best, and we'll catch you on the next one.